All right, thanks, Porter. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:35 on Wednesday, November 13th. My name is Daniel B. Smith. I'm the chair of the Cultural Arts Commission, and this is the regular monthly Cultural Arts Commission meeting. I will begin things as I always do by, am I not kicking it over to you anymore for the spiel? Is that off the agenda?
Well, because nobody's on, it's really mostly for the Zoom action, so we don't have to do it.
I will begin things with a roll call, starting with Marlo.
Present.
And then Tim, and then Alicia.
Present.
And then Monique told us they wouldn't be able to be here, and then Kelly.
Here.
And Matthew.
I'm here.
Great. Up next, our first official action for the evening is approving the minutes from the October 9th, 2024 meeting. As always, if somebody has a correction or a discussion of the meeting minutes, this would be the appropriate time. If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. I will now do a roll call vote to approve the minutes from October 9th, 2024, starting with Marlo.
Approve.
And then Alicia.
Approve.
And then Kelly.
Approve.
And then Matthew.
Approved.
I will also approve, passing unanimously. Up next is public comment, which hasn't been exciting for a while. We don't have any public commentary, I don't believe. Nobody has joined online since we started the meeting, so we will keep on moving. We have a lot of stuff to discuss. That will take us directly into our actual agenda items, beginning with a pretty exciting update on the community arts grants.
Indeed. So you all have basically approved these, but our last meeting we talked about changing some things and adjusting schedule with the TGT grants, which I've done all that. As most of you hopefully know, the TGT grant application is open. Per our conversation, let that open first, and then we'll do the community arts grants afterwards. So all that is going well. And the easiest thing, I won't go back into the grants guidelines, but I did make all the adjustments that were listed in the minutes as well. This is sort of the best summary, I think, is this is the calendar for the community arts grants that I'm looking at. So these would open on December 30th after the holiday, and then close on February 3rd, giving people hopefully enough time, especially at the beginning of the year. And just so everybody knows, even though we're going to do this, they can be, grants awards can be made retroactive. So if somebody were to do a program on January 12th, and they get a grant award, they can still receive that funding for that. But they'd have to fund it themselves to make it happen. The pre-application review is on. And what I've done, last year it was confusing because we tried to do it online. And I've created a PDF, a fillable PDF this time, to make it easier for people, because there was a lot of struggle with that. So that's the better option, and then we'll review that prior to the final deadline so that they have plenty of time to get their grant application in. And then you all will review, so you all will get the score. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done this. So after it closes, what I will do is send each of you the, how do I do this? God, it's been so long. Help.
Rubric, usually?
Help.
Isn't that what it's called?
The scoring form, yes. And the applications. Sorry, it's been a while. So you all will review the applications and look at the criteria on the scoring rubric, thank you, and fill out your scores individually, and then send those back to me, and then I will put those into a different rubric, which gives us that visual reference with the standard deviation information, so that prompts more opportunity for discussion about grants. So we'll see the scoring and how the prioritization works out that way. But if Alicia says, oh my gosh, you know, this dog theater is the best thing I've ever seen, but it scored low because nobody's seen it, but I really think it should get higher and it could be advanced. I hope we get dog theater.
I know, I'm into that now.
It might, actually. And so then review, and then you'd make your recommendations on the 12th, and then I take it to the City Commission for final approval at the 18th. That's our targets, you know, things can change, but basically that's how that'll work. And then we also talked about not having the mini grants align directly with that schedule as well. That was a little trickier in my little brain, but I think I figured it out. So the mini grants will be open from January, no, wait a minute. Yes, mini grants will be open January 27th to March 7th. So we decided that since that's more about buying equipment, it didn't have to be, it wasn't on the same sort of
Right.
timeline. So it'll be a completely separate little mini grant program. So I've got that set up, and then same thing, we'll do the scoring, and then on March 12th, you guys can meet and discuss that, and then take it to the city commission as well. So that's how I got that all worked out. So just so you're all aware, and then it's all reiterated in the guidelines, and just so people can see. Oh, it's not a comma? All right, so here's what I do. I go to offices. If you guys ever need to, I go to Parks, Recreation, Arts, and Culture. I scroll down here to all of arts and culture stuff, and just so you can see, here is what the webpage looks like. So I have the information up here is when the grants program is going to open, background information for the program, my contact information, last year's awards, and then when it's ready, the application will go here. And we're working actually on getting this all updated too. I'm working with our webmaster on that. So just FYI, that's there in case people ask you questions.
Okay.
Porter, could you refresh my memory and why people didn't like the online form or the way we did it last year? What was, like, why are you going to the PDF? I was just curious.
So the it was my error in the sense that I thought the online form would work, but of course the online form is asking for more information than a mini grant really needs to have.
I see.
So people got confused because the requests for, different budget amounts and things, it just didn't make sense.
Got it.
So I sent it information to say, ignore that part. So it did work,
Okay.
but it was confusing. So I thought, let me simplify this and just make it easier for everybody. So that's what I'll do to make that work.
Because I do like the way we do our online forms.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's worked out really well. And now that you can actually save as you go, that's
Yeah.
really helpful. So I like it too because it puts everything in a nice, tidy
Yeah.
database that I can then share virtually with all of you. So,
I think it does a good job at the budget too, if I remember correctly. Like it does the math for you, and it's just a real intuitive platform, I thought.
yeah. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear that. We've had a few bumps here and there, but I think we've got it now.
I think so, too.
So that is what I want to share with you guys.
Are the mini grants this year being paid, like, I think last year, was it like through another, I know the Art Center helped? Are they doing that same thing this year, or?
No, I'm working with finance to figure out, because it turned out to be a little more painful than we hoped.
I remember you saying that.
So I really
and
appreciate the
wondered.
Art Center doing that, but now that we have a vendor system that anybody can sign up to be a vendor, I think it'll be easier for us to make those direct payments to people, and that way they'll get it faster, so, knock on wood.
I like that we have more time to market those, because I feel like the community arts grants, we have a limited amount of art events in the town, so I think it's easy to market that, where the mini grants, I think, is a new audience for us, and so having additional time to get the word out about that, I think is going to be helpful.
Yeah, and the mini grants are 18 and older, just so people know. So a high school student could conceivably write a grant, which I'd encourage even just for the experience. But it is that threshold that we have to work with people 18 and over. But beyond that, and I haven't talked to anybody who received a mini grant directly about their mini grant. So I haven't heard anything negative either. So I assume it was helpful. I know that can be really helpful, in buying equipment and other things. So. And I realize you guys are not as familiar, so do you have any questions on this?
I think I'm getting it.
Okay,
Sort of a learn by going thing, I think.
absolutely.
I'm not
that's fine.
confused so far, so.
That's a good sign. You're also our filter. Okay,
All right, great. Thanks, Porter. So our next item up is a big one, and it's not necessarily something we're going to take any specific action on or finish discussing in this meeting, but we're going to be discussing our bylaws and kind of everything foundational to this body. So I know Porter has a pretty hefty presentation for us.
Oops.
And obviously we all have quite a bit of material sitting in front of us as well.
Yeah. Kurt, do I need to share this, or can you get it this way?
That's pretty good.
Okay. All right, so yeah, and some of this is redundant, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. But just to remind everybody where we are so far, this is the background on the policies that have restructured everything, all the boards and commissions that we're working from. And you are a policy advisory board, and you are able to write your own bylaws if you feel like that's necessary. This will make sense as I keep going. And so the unmistakable identity advisory boards have been set up, which of course you know that that's you and also the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And let's see, this is just the background information. I don't mean to belabor this stuff, so this is all available. And you know, one thing I just remind you is that I intentionally put these on the agendas, so if you ever need to go back and reference something, it's there. You just have to remember which agenda item. But these are all linked, so you can pull them up. You can download these if you want to. And please ask. I have all this stuff, so I'm happy to send it out. The roles of the chair, the board members, and the staff liaison. The standards, again, I won't go through all these in detail. And of course, the strategic plan, which is kind of the key. So one thing I've provided to you all today is the key performance or progress indicators. They're listed both ways. So here it's performance. So these are the things that reference back to the strategic plan, and this is all the performance indicators under unmistakable identity. So every outcome area has a set of key performance indicators, and some of them overlap, but this is specifically geared for unmistakable identity and, of course, parks, recreation, arts, and culture. So I just want you to have these as a reference point, because I think these are going to become more and more valuable as we start deciding, forgive me, I keep saying that, as you all start deciding how you want to move forward, policies that you might want to develop, programs that you might want to change, that will all have to go through this litmus test at some level to see how it aligns with the strategic plan. And of course, unmistakable identity. Lawrence is a welcoming community, synonymous with arts, diverse culture, fun, and a quintessential downtown. City parks and community events contribute to the vibrancy experienced by all people in Lawrence. And the progress indicators here as well. So that's really it. But what I do want to do is I brought more paper copies. So we've been working with the Parks Board. I've been talking to other staff liaisons. Every board is sort of still riding with the training wheels on, if you will, trying to understand how to move forward. So one thought I wanted to share with you all is a conversation you all should be having is, you know, what sort of game plan do you want to work on to move forward? And keep in mind that you have, you know, a monthly meeting, so it's not like you have a lot of extra time or anything. Although people can do homework, do research, bring information back to the board and that type of thing. In my mind, and I'm not saying this is the only way, but one thing is to think about what historical responsibilities did the Art Commission have? Mural reviews, art donation guidelines. Those things are kind of gone. I'm trying to check on a couple of those because those were not ordinance or resolutions, so I want to see if they're still valid. So I even have some confusion in that. But thinking about sort of those base policies that may be important for the city and the Art Commission, and obviously updating them according to the strategic plan as well. So thinking about equity, thinking about sustainability, those types of things. In addition to that, there's several lists actually of possible areas to look into as well. So this one is from the cultural plan. Mm-hmm. For those not familiar, the cultural plan was worked on by a really pretty extensive steering committee group over a long process through a consultant team. And this never really got legs, and then, of course, COVID even hit and just didn't work. But it's a good plan. It's based on 3 different goal areas. A1 is balance the local. A2 is embrace all. A3, build places together. Actually, it's more than 3, sorry. So these are the A's, and then you get into the B's as well. A5 is promote lifelong learning. And then B is getting the work done, strengthen the network, mind the gaps. So anyway, they're all in headings, but basically the actions are kind of a laundry list of opportunities. And the good news is that it really aligns with the strategic plan pretty well. So these are all things that have been proposed through a community engagement process that you all have access to as a resource. I just want to share that with you. And of course, this is online too. And then this micro one is the draft version of, let me show you where this is. So go back to the city. Let me think, where's this one? This is under community engagement. So this is part of the Parks, Recreation, Arts, and Culture Comprehensive Plan. They have several implementation recommendations, and of course, arts and culture is one of them. It's microscopic here, but I can do this. So these are current recommendations. As I said, I don't know that we will have this complete and to the Art Commission until next year. We will bring it to this board and the Parks and Recreation Board just for a quick review, just so you guys can see what's in there as well. Also the steering committee that worked on this. But again, this is offering some ideas based on that process and engagement. So all of these, like the other ones in the cultural plan, these are all a list of possible opportunities based on the research of the consultants as part of the comprehensive plan. So different things to think about as possibilities, and then ultimately decide what you want to do, come together as a group, and focus, on whatever those things are that you want to do, so that you can ultimately make recommendations to the City Commission. That's kind of a quick, broad overview. Does that make sense to everybody?
I was kind of confused when you said something was gone. It was like the mural guidelines.
Mural review or something?
Mural
Yeah.
review.
So and again, I'm still learning here, so, but if you go, let's see, where's my best thing? Let me go back here. Oh no, I should go here. Sorry, I'm dancing around. Let me do this. Okay. So if we do this and go here, the only policy, so this took out other policies. It kind of cleaned house. And I will say the Art Commission had too many policies. This commission has been reaffirmed numerous times since 1973. So there's a lot of policy buildup, if you will. So that's not a bad thing. But at this point, my understanding is that okay, this is boards and commissions. I'm not sure I'm going to get there this way. I go to the Cultural Arts Commission. Oh, this is you all. Hang on, let me see. I know I put it in one of the agendas, so bear with me a sec. Huh? To just speak to this, the only policy that is still active never fails that in a public meeting, I can't find something that I know exists. You know what I'm going to do? Let me do this. So I'm going to go back. Actually, you know what, Daniel? You and I have this right here. So there was resolution number 7140, which was an update on the membership and responsibilities that was approved in 2015 for the Cultural Arts Commission. That has been repealed with the new policies for boards and commissions. So that doesn't technically exist anymore, but I can get you a copy of it. Resolution number 7070, which is the 2% for public art policy, is active, so that stayed. The other thing was that you had an administrative policy that had been done over the years, probably dated, but has information that might be helpful to think about what things do we want to do going forward. The public art program is still in place. The mural review guidelines, I'm not crystal clear on whether those are still, I think we can still use them as a tool, but I just need to find out how, formally, do those still have the same weight that they did before? I don't know for sure.
Is that where if someone wanted to do a public mural, they come here first? So,
Right.
okay, I
And
just
we would
wanted to.
have guidelines for what to evaluate them on.
Okay.
And it seems like a helpful thing to
So
have
it's right
still.
now not active at the moment?
Potentially.
Potentially, okay.
Well, so let me show you. So it's still,
Question.
everything is here, and I've made sure that whatever does serve us is still available. So under public art, you'll see this is information about various things, including the Percent for Art program. And then the mural review guidelines are here. So now, because this was not a policy per se, and it was worked on very carefully, I know by a lot of people, that I think it still is very valid. And I like it because it includes an agreement so that property owners understand copyright issues and other things. So I think it's a really valid thing. I know that some people don't like it because there's a lot of information required. But with murals, that's really helpful.
Is this something you could easily share with us, especially our new commissioners? Like, I'd love your feedback on it, Alicia. And is it something you
Yeah.
could easily?
Yeah, just like I did. If you go to Parks and Recreation and scroll back to this, so we have all these different, this is Parks and Rec with our sliders up here, and then different areas of interest. And it's down in this lower left-hand corner. And if you go to public art, you can scroll down and find the mural review criteria and the loadable mural review proposal template. So this has everything somebody that wants to make a proposal to you all about a mural has information. And we even have samples. This is Dave Lowenstein's mural proposal for Cottons. Just so people can see, this is the information that we're trying to glean to be able to review these murals and make sure that the neighborhood is amenable, that type of thing. So everything a muralist would need to have, I think, is here. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is still valid. I don't mean to say it's
Okay.
defunct, but that's what I'm trying to understand. But it's also a reset opportunity to say, let's look at this. Does this still work for us? And maybe even look at it in reference to the KPIs. Probably won't hit everything, but is it still agreeable to that?
I have a question about this. Let me take a step back, was the way that, when this worked before any possible repeals or anything, is that tied into an enforceable ordinance that people need to come and do these steps before painting a mural? Is there, what if somebody's just said, I don't feel like doing that, and did it,
That's an excellent point. So to answer your question, I think it tied back to resolution number 7140, which tells us that the Art Commission has the authority to review artworks in the public realm. So I think it ties back to that. And honestly, while most murals I think have gone through review here, I know that there are some that
Right.
have not. And we don't have staff bandwidth to go out and police that.
Sure.
So it's a valid point, and that's a good question, is how would we recommend to the city commission that be addressed?
Yeah, I think just my only thought on that is kind of more from the end of, I mean, do people even know there's a process to go through before they start, painting the side of the garage or whatever they plan on doing?
And what we've seen as well is, obviously, if it's going to be on a public facility, library, Hobbs Park, those examples, and even downtown, I think there's some validity in us monitoring, even though those are technically on private property. The reason I like what we have is because even if you're a property owner, there's a 1990 Visual Artists' Rights Act, which most people do not know about, but that's very protective of an artist's copyright. And so technically, if I hire you to paint a mural on my building, and you do that and sign it, that's an artwork. And then I sell the building, and the new owner comes in and paints over it, there's a potential legal ramification there, that was painting over somebody's work. So you get into that kind of stuff, and with the internet, copyright is becoming more and more prevalent in everybody's awareness, because, So it's that kind of nitty-gritty stuff that gets a little academic, but good questions.
Daniel B. Smith, one other thing to keep in mind for the newer members with the mural review process is that it does also occasionally run up against the sign code, which is something that we always have to be cognizant of, that if someone's painting a mural on their side of the building and the mural has big letters telling people to come into their store, that, is it a mural, is it a sign? And there are more, I feel like there's more stringent specifications around the sign code and what is and is not permissible, whereas I feel like with murals, it has been at least a little more of a gray area.
That makes sense, and I kind of wondered, too, whether the enforcement of this mural thing might have played into that ordinance, because obviously that's enforceable, because it's been there forever, and I get it. It's interesting, though.
Can this be an action item for next meeting? Like, everybody takes a look at the guidelines and reviews and gives some feedback at January meeting?
Daniel Smith, I think that seems like a great idea. I feel like, obviously, we don't have like we could develop it during this meeting, but we don't have like a bulleted list of things we need to tackle quite yet. But I think this definitely seems like an item that could be on that list. We could, I do think, from my experience, maybe Marla, you mentioned earlier you felt like the mural review guidelines have been positive and worked well in the past. I agree with that. I do think that we can look at some of these KPIs, and we can also look at some of these questions around loopholes, because there have definitely been situations where people came to us and asked for a mural review in a situation where we really feel like they probably didn't need to, which is fine. It's always nice to see great artwork. And there have been situations where things have kind of appeared overnight and we weren't really sure what that was about. So I think maybe kind of answering the question about what do we want to advise the city to do in those situations. So I think keeping a couple of those things in mind, and then coming back next month with some scribbled notes about how we'd like to see the old mural review guidelines maybe changed a little bit and then actually made into an official policy.
Yeah, and I don't mean to come off like I want to be the mural police or anything.
No.
I'm just trying to get an idea of structurally how this all kind of fits together.
Yeah.
And it's important to have these conversations. The other thing I want to inject into this is that Historic Resources Commission is also a factor in this.
Sure.
So for brick buildings, for instance, we went through this with the Art Center. There's very stringent historic requirements, and that's another reason why this is a good thing, is that if it comes to this board, then it's also able to be reviewed by other boards potentially and other staff. So when I get a mural proposal, I immediately alert HRC to make sure that they're aware of it if they see any issues. And actually with the Art Center, while they have a great artist and a beautiful proposal, the wall so if you're familiar on 10th Street, there's an alley between the Art Center, what's the building, what's it called, the extension office building?
Yeah. don't know what it's called.
And then the Indian restaurant building. And
Yes.
there's a mural now on the west-facing wall, which is fabulous. There was going to be a complementary mural on the east-facing wall, but because that wall is brick, even though it's been graffitied, unfortunately, brick is kind of sacred territory because obviously removing paint from historic brick or any brick is very difficult.
Right.
So that's, this is where it's, on one hand, we want to encourage people to do things in the public realm, but on the other hand, we also have to be mindful of whose property is this, what's the longevity of it, and of course, the agreement is very particular about maintenance. Who's responsible for maintenance, who has ownership of the artwork and that type of thing. So it's helpful to do that. That said, if you look at Philadelphia, they have one of the most, probably the most famous mural program in the country that's been going on for over 30 years now. So they have massive murals all over the city. They do mural tours. I mean, it's really fantastic. And some amazing murals, massive murals. So embracing murals is a good thing, but we have to remember that there's different requirements for where murals are painted and how they're painted. So food for thought on that. And I think that's something I want to also bring to this group is that so often policies are written reactively, like we don't want X, Y, or Z. So it's more of a reaction to a problem. Writing policy what do you want is where I like to think of, like, what kind of mural program should we have? Should we have a mural program? That's why these discussions are really great, is because it starts you thinking bigger picture and more aspirationally about what do we want? Do we want more murals? That type of question.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I definitely do want more murals. I like murals.
Yeah, murals are great.
But I do think as a baseline for all the things we're discussing today, it's important to keep in mind that, like, we can move away from any of this or change it. A lot of stuff. Like, there's a lot of freedom, and if I think this group is pretty good at not necessarily holding on to things just because it's the way that it was, but thinking about what's actually going to be the best moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, does anybody else have any comments about the mural review guidelines specifically? Because there's a handful of other things that kind of fall into a similar category of old guidelines that we do actually need to come up with some sort of replacement for.
What was the administrative one? You'd mentioned an administrative one that was no longer active. I was curious what that was.
Administrative Policy 81,
Yeah, what is that?
the donated art guidelines. Is that what you're referring to, Border?
No, there's also, and I don't know if that's still available online. All right, hang on, let me think.
Porter, do you
Okay, no, Administrative Policy 81 is donated art guidelines. Is that still on public art? There's also, sorry, I'm confusing administrative with, there's another document that basically was the bylaws of this body originally, but it was much more specific to meeting structure, nominations, seats, that kind of thing, which is really taken care of in the new policies that we have. Let me see if this is on here. I think it is, now that I think
There you
about it.
go.
Yes. So I actually sent an email to the city clerk's office to check on this because I just don't know. This is an administrative policy internally. It was effective March 6, 2001. I believe this is an important policy because people do like to donate things, and it's good to have some sort of filtration so that, we just don't accept everything that somebody wants to give to us necessarily. So my hope is that this is still active. I have no reason to believe it isn't, but with all the changes, I just want to double check and make sure. So if you wanted to review this, is this satisfactory as well?
but that's something that is potentially still fully active.
Yes, that's true. And it can be they can be updated too if we thought there was room for improvement.
DW Smith. So in terms of other things that need to be reviewed and reestablished or, replaced, all three of our main annual programs, or the programs that we've, done year after year in the past, or the previous version of this board did, all three of those also would need to be reestablished or replaced, or?
The programs are not policy. They're part of the programs that this body decides to implement, and then it's budgeted accordingly. So we know that in 2025, this is budgeted, and now that we have full funding for the grant program, we can go back to that original budget. But as demonstrated by that, what you all did last meeting, you could change things. If you decided we need to put more money here or there, you have that flexibility with your approved budget in that sense. Or if, for example, annual outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition, the one thing we haven't really done is come up with a name. What's an appropriate name? I call it various things. But, and is this still an effective program? I'm actually doing a panel discussion in January for Kansas Recreation Parks Association, and I've been talking to peers in Johnson County, Derby, Kansas, and Salina. And, these temporary programs are so important, and I think Alicia and I have had this conversation more than once. They're not just important as a benefit to the public, they're also really important to young artists or emerging artists who are interested in public art. They're seeing these big commission opportunities, but they don't know what to do with that. So this is a miniature version of a public art opportunity on a temporary basis. So it's a professional development opportunity for them. And I think that's something that I emphasize. Sculpture's great, it's been around, it's still around, but public art is an evolving, ever-evolving field. So is this the best way to help our local artists be more competitive? Is that something that you're interested in doing? Those are the kinds of questions that float around in my brain.
Will you report back on the panel that you're on and see what some of the ideas?
Yeah, we're each going to talk about, the panel is, having worked in Parks and Rec for years, on and off, Parks and Rec always attracts art programming, but doesn't really do it on purpose. And so I'm arguing, if you're going to do it on purpose. And happily, the peers that I'm talking to are totally on board. Like, yes, this is true. We need to recognize that this is something that is valuable. I would dare say more valuable now than ever, because frankly, the technology we were talking about earlier, get kids off of these and get them using their hands, crafting, making art, making music, all those good things. So it's actually a health issue, I think. So how do you provide that? And obviously the Art Center is doing that, but I think Parks and Rec, there's certainly an opportunity there that needs to be tapped.
I love our program, and I even, now that you're saying health and art, even when we did that exhibition walking tour that we do every year, we had young people join us, and we had interesting things happen on the route, and it was just a community building experience. So I think there's opportunity to expand to other media, but I would not be in favor of getting rid of, totally reimagining that, but just being more creative with it. I think we can do that, but I think it's such a valuable thing for the community.
DW Smith, Porter, you mentioned that this isn't something these aren't policies, they're just the programs that we choose to carry out every year, and that we can change them. And that's something we can do. We can do that every year. We have the opportunity to reassess and shift things, and take them in slightly different directions. Or so I think that's something that's to me, it's something that's important to keep in mind. But as for our discussion right now, since we have all this discussion of the bylaws and a lot of other things that actually have to be officially established, I feel like maybe we could review the programs and think about if there's anything we want to change. But I agree that specifically the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition, I think coming up with a new name seems does actually seem like a good idea, because it's been a tricky point for a while. But the ODSD and the community arts grants have been really solid as long as I've been a part of this, or the previous version of this board. And I think the Phoenix Awards, I've never heard any major complaints. I feel like the every other year cycle always seems to throw people off a little bit, but I do think there's positive reasons for doing that, so.
Let me ask you this, just hypothetically. If we were going to, say, do a new program or replacement program, what kind of timeline would we, like, if we want to do this for summer of 2026, when would we need to start thinking about that? How quickly do these things come to be?
Great question. Generally speaking, the budget process ends in August and starts in August for the next year, if
Right.
you will. So that's a key, where's the funding coming from? And
Sure.
it has to be approved by this, the city commission. So, my answer would be as soon as possible, frankly. It would take probably at least a year. It also has to go through this body.
Sure.
To make sure it's something that this body can recommend to the city commission. So if you were to take, say, one of our existing programs, just as an example, you could do that more expeditiously because you have the budget already. The city commission basically trusts that you're going to implement the appropriate programs in that sense. I think there's probably a tipping point of going too far, maybe.
Sure.
We'd have to be aware of as well. But if you said, let's take, $5,000 and do, I'll just use my other example, a dog theater program.
I like it better and
that's
better
something
already
you could
every time you say it.
It's my secret agenda. You could do that. So that's one way. But if it was a new program that required new funding, that's kind of a bigger conversation.
Sure.
And would have to tie very much to the strategic plan as a proposal going to the city
I
commission.
think you can make the case for dog theater for additional funding, but I'm being ambitious.
So thinking about our hypothetical bullet pointed list of things that we need to actually reinvent or reestablish, we talked about the real guidelines. What are the other things, Porter, off the big things that this body actually needs to put in place?
The other thing that actually I made note here, so the Cultural Arts Commission approved a new mission statement in November 2015, which is the mission of the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission is to enhance and enliven the community by promoting cultural opportunities and arts education while nurturing an environment of aesthetic vitality. I would ask the question, is that still fitting for where we are now and a new strategic plan?
The word education is maybe not entirely what we do. I think it's experiential. And so I think creating, like thinking of the ODSC Outdown Sculpture Exhibition, it's not just the kids making art or like hands-on, but integrating art experiences in your daily life. So walking downtown to a restaurant, walking by the sculpture and giving it a spin, and just really making that part of our community in an everyday way. And so I don't know if education feels quite right to what we do, but I think integrating experiences in art throughout the city, I don't know.
DLB Smith, I agree. I also feel like a lot of discussions that we've had over, for a while now, years now, have talked about how, things like, the word enliven, it sounds very pleasant, but the reality is that arts and culture in this community isn't just a pleasant thing. It's also people's livelihoods, people's jobs, economic growth. The reason why people even choose to live or stay in the community. I feel like the mission statement could speak a little bit more to that impact. The fact that it's not just a pleasant thing for, in addition to everything else that's going on in the community, that it really does have an impact and underpin a lot of the other outcomes in the strategic plan. So,
yeah, I think that's absolutely valid. And then I also think, this is under unmistakable identity, which speaks to some of this as well. Being a welcoming community, synonymous with arts, diverse culture, fun, and a quintessential downtown. City parks and community events contribute to the vibrancy experienced by all people in Lawrence. And then there's the progress indicators that are here. I bring that up because I think this could actually be an interesting starting point, to say, okay, what's our new mission under all of this change? And that might guide this body to bylaws and developing policy, that type of thing. So food for thought. The challenge is, how would you want to do that?
How do you write the mission?
Where,
Whiteboard, do we have it?
where can I find that lengthy, wordy sentence about what the Arts Commission is about that you just read?
Mission statement?
Yeah.
I don't think it's still online, but I can send all this to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, having heard it read out loud exactly once, there's a lot more things in the newer planning or the draft plan and things that kind of emphasize equity and inclusion. And just a couple of words like diverse cultures. I don't remember hearing anything like that in there. That's probably worth adding a couple of words or a clause or something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
This actually leads to another. Does anybody remember, did we establish a retreat date?
I was wondering about that too.
I don't think we actually did. I think
just
we
talked
talked about it. So your monthly meeting, I believe, would be January 8th. And I've talked to Marlo because we do know that the La Yarda Public Art Project will eventually need to come to this body. I think at that stage it would probably be more just informational. So we could do that and hold that meeting, but then also hold a retreat. But this also lends itself well to what does that retreat agenda look like, and what might you want to do with that and how to approach that. So, and I think on a mission statement, how can this body get input from the community on that as well? That would be something to consider. Community engagement is very much part of what we do as well. So thinking about how to do that, food for thought. So I don't know if we want to try to make a date for the retreat. It's usually on a Sunday. Going backwards. Which would be January 5th, 12th, 19th, or 26th. And your meeting would be on the 8th. If we don't cancel it, that's also an option. We can determine if that La Yarda project needs to come at that meeting.
It could come later.
Okay. So historically, what we've done is had a retreat, and in lieu of that, or with that, we would just cancel the monthly meeting.
What meeting would we be reviewing the community arts grants? Is that later?
February,
February?
right?
Yeah.
I think that was February, yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to put the
Right.
on that agenda.
No, absolutely.
B. Smith, I think we should probably, if we're going to do the retreat on one of these Sundays in January, to me, I feel like we should not have our regular monthly meeting. I'm pretty sure that's what was done in the past. Not that what was done in the past is something we're beholden to, but we all have a limited amount of time. So to me, I think just doing the retreat in January makes sense. Although I guess I'm willing to do both if other people object.
And it doesn't have to be on a Sunday. You also can determine.
But it's usually about 4 hours. Is that right? I feel like in the past it was
3 hours?
noon to 3.
I think
Is
we
that what
did.
11?
Yeah, we did 3 or 4 hours. I think it's been both.
Yeah.
And much of that depends on the agenda. How much do you want to tackle in one meeting? It will be an open meeting, so we could probably do it at Parks and Rec, which I think we did last time.
January 5th seems a little bit close to the holidays. So I'd say the 12th or the 19th would work.
I can't do the 19th.
12th it is then.
Well, that was easy.
Everybody's amenable to the 12th?
Works for me.
Okay, good.
The 19th is my anniversary, and it's like the only date I have planned for any point in 2025.
What are you doing?
I don't know,
Oh.
but I'm not scheduling over it.
So as far as thinking in homework terms, I do think the retreat seems like a natural time to actually finalize the mission, but I do think we could each individually be thinking about it. And then as far as community engagement, I don't know, Porter, if you'd be able to get the comms people to put out a social post asking folks what words come to their mind as like foundational terms to be included, or if you want us to just walk up and down the street asking people for input.
It might be pretty cool, actually.
I like that.
I know that would take time, but, you know, I will say that having done several community engagements, we've done surveys, we do all different things, but one of the most powerful things I ever did was when the parklets were so contentious. And instead of just, I was doing surveys, but I also walked up and down Mass and talked individually to businesses, which sometimes was the owner, sometimes it was the manager, sometimes it was staff working behind the desk. Everybody had good information that I know we would not have garnered from a survey. So I do offer that. It's a chance for you all to be more hands-on, frankly, as arts commissioners. The good news, too, is with 7 of you, you can divvy up the job and, you know, each take a block or something and do it over a period of time. Or, you know, it could be a smaller team. So food for thought. I mean, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's an interesting opportunity. So I think that's part of what should be discussed is how do you want to approach this? And the key to that, too, is asking the right questions to get people's feedback on, you know, what are their thoughts about arts and culture in Lawrence. The other thing is we did the music census. Sorry, I keep saying we. It's so automatic. This body doesn't talk a lot about music. Is that something that should be more on the forefront, given, you know, with what we're doing and stuff? I don't think that's intentional. It just hasn't been as prominent as other things.
I did appreciate going last year and talking to the Lawrence Music Alliance about the mini grants. I feel like the mini grants are a program that works really nicely for musicians specifically, where, you know, gear, being able to buy an extra piece of gear can really have a large impact. But I do think that's something that would be nice to replicate again, or just go and engage with them again, or continue engaging with that group. I'm not opposed to walking up and down Mass Street on a Friday and asking people questions. I don't know if anybody else.
I'd happily do that, yeah.
I would
You're in.
Is that something you'd want to more formally determine at the retreat?
The walking up and down protocol?
Yeah, what you want to do for
January, we
a
love
mission
hope.
statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice for us to be able to actually finalize the mission statement at the retreat in January, or, you know, put together
Oh, okay.
a draft. So maybe between now and our next monthly meeting, we can put together a concept for what walking up and down the street, asking people questions looks like. And then we can discuss it at the next meeting. We could put together some questions we think would be nice to ask, and then agree upon them at the next meeting. And then between December and January, I'll just be on the street corner.
Could be -5 or 82 degrees. We don't know.
That's a good point.
Is there anything else people want to discuss as far as the mission statement's concerned? It seems like everybody kind of agrees there's like, yeah, equity and some certain things which are kind of obviously missing.
I think vitality, you know, just making sure that art is essential to the city. And I think it's always referred to in marketing materials, but just being like an important part of our existence here, it really makes our lives meaningful.
In my experience also, you know, artists tend to work in studios. They tend to be isolated. They don't tend to work as a group typically. They often feel left out, ironically. I'm sure you understand that. So that's something to be conscious of. And maybe the Art Center and Theater Lawrence and Nick Carswell with Lawrence Music Alliance could participate in this in some capacity to, you know, glean their, you know, one is just to read the mission statement and say what works with this and what's missing.
if we did want to make a survey of just a few questions, asking people what they thought the mission statement should really be about, would that be something that you and Parks and Recreation staff would be willing to forward on to folks to try and collect some of that, just like a simple email out to people looking for feedback, as opposed to, a more drastic community feedback?
Yeah, my pause is trying to think how to do that. But I think we can do something. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that would look like and how we reach out, but certainly through social media and perhaps it could be a survey of some sort. It won't be statistically, scientifically valid, but it'll certainly give you some feedback and some thoughts.
We could put it in the Art Center newsletter. That's true. Theater Lawrence would do that as well.
Yes.
I think we all have networks of different people that.
Well, and keep in mind too that UI 3, under efficient and effective processes, number of people who have visited or utilized a city recreation facility, city recreation program, Theater Lawrence, the Watkins Museum of History, the Lawrence Arts Center, the Explore Lawrence Tourism Center, and/or the Lawrence Public Library. So those are our designated formal partners as part of our, strategic plan. So, and obviously all of those are good places to put the word out. So, yeah.
So is there anything else on our hypothetical bullet pointed list of things that we need to reestablish that we should be thinking about right now, or homework things that we can look over and come back next month with some ideas about how we'd want to see those things shaped? I mean, are there other specific policies that we need, or is that really those few things the ones that we need to put in place?
Need is a subjective term. There's so much both opportunity and, challenge here that I think that's why these conversations are going to be helpful. I would suggest that all of you, through this conversation, you're asking some terrific questions. If you have thoughts, and bring your bias. Alicia, you're a working artist in this community. You have that insight. You work with young people. Think about, as a member of this body, what do I think should be on our radar to be talking about? Obviously, filmmaking, I didn't even mention that, but that's obviously an important area too. So all those experiential areas are valid. I do think there's an opportunity at this point to just sort of throw the spaghetti against the wall too, and just see what kind of stuff sticks. And then at the retreat, hopefully distill things down to a workable, body of opportunity that we wouldn't lose. We can keep the list, but obviously you have limited time over the course of a year to develop programs or change things in that sense. And we do have to align with the city's budget process. And as you probably have heard, the 2026 budget is going to be more challenging than the 2025 budget because of reduced sales tax and that type of thing. So.
But then the World Cup is coming, and we're all going to enjoy ourselves the following year.
There are a couple of things on here that I wanted to bring up as far as, some of the documents that I have in front of us, specifically all of these different things that are outlined as part of the master plan. This is essentially, to me, like a list of all it's like a dream list of all the great things that I want to see us see happen over the next, 5-10 years. But those things, since obviously, you mentioned the master plan itself wouldn't really fully be presented in its final form until sometime the next year. Are those things where we should be thinking about in terms of this board's policies, or should we wait until that is in place and then, discuss more recommendations we'd want to make around these specific ideas with signature events and with turning the resolution into an ordinance?
That's a great question. My, direct answer would be we should not rush into it if that's amenable. But I know these were carefully vetted by the consultant group, and they did a lot of really earnest community engagement. So I think that all of these, whether they stay on the plan or not, have viability if it was an area of interest to this board.
And the fact that they have been vetted through the community engagement says that not only are these ideas that smart people have come up up with, but they're also ideas that people in the community clearly support.
I think that's fair. So, yeah, I think it's fair game. Again, we're kind of in the spaghetti throwing process right now. So if any of these resonate, or if you go to the cultural plan, I think all of these were vetted as, through a very extensive community process. So those are there too. And it doesn't mean you can't, from your personal experience, say, you know what, we really need to think about dog theater. I'm just going to come back to it, guys.
I know some people who I feel like would be great partners in that endeavor.
There you go. There's my phone. I'm trying to get her an Oscar.
I didn't see it.
Oh, sorry. Did it go away?
What did I miss?
I'm sorry.
I thought you were just showing us you had a phone.
Quick.
Oh, look at that.
That's Charlotte.
That's awesome.
So that's really the overview of some of these things. I wrote notes for myself as far as specific homework with mural review, mission, and a new name for our outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition. I think those are three things that, but I guess everybody gets welcome to bring whatever spaghetti you can think of for our next meeting, and then our January 12th retreat. We have one other thing here, which is if nobody else has anything else they want to discuss about policies and bylaws, which is just an update on our location for our regular monthly meeting. Which I think I have an idea where this is going to go, because I was chatting with Kurt before this, but we usually meet here.
This is true. And based on the new policy, this was supposed to be the place that everybody met. However, they're in the process of closing the offices at the Planning Development Services, which if you want to read the Journal World, there's all sorts of background on that. So that means that there are 3 conference rooms that are going to be abandoned, and a municipal court. So municipal court is going to meet here during the day. That doesn't affect us directly, but what it has done is, because other boards and commissions do meet during the day, it's sort of freed up the opportunity that we don't have to meet here, which I'm happy about, because we could meet at Parks and Recreation. We can meet at the same time, or even potentially look at, since we're now not tied to this space, we could go back to that conversation of, is there a different time that would be more effective? We just have to make sure it's available, since there's going to be more competition for these rooms. But I believe our next meeting will be held there. So keep the same time, just for,
Parks and Rec space?
yeah, at our admin building. So I think we may do that. So, yeah, I mean, if everybody, I just want to make sure you're aware of that. I'll definitely let you know by email if that's what occurs, but, so it might be meeting there.
So the question is, if this is recorded for people to see, all of those rooms that are available also have that capability? Oh, okay.
That's a key thing as well. I don't know that it will be run through the same system, but we would definitely have a Zoom recording of the meetings. So yes, we will document the meetings that way. And we have the technology in the Parks and Rec office as well.
Deanna B. Smith, is that additional flexibility, is that a temporary thing while we're, sort of sharing the space with the courts? This room is being utilized for that, or is that something where just maybe it's going to stay that way?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how long that may or may not last, so.
Well, I certainly, after the couple of meetings where we went through trying to come up with a different time, I feel like that process was lengthy, and we ended up back at square one. So I'm not necessarily eager to dive back into that discussion yet, but maybe maybe we can put that on the agenda for next month and chat about that once again.
Hopefully everybody can be here. Yeah.
And for everybody, if you can't physically make it here, you can use the Zoom option. So don't, that often helps people say, I'm just not going to make it, but I'll tune in on Zoom. So it gives you that flexibility to do that.
Cool beans.
All right, well, hearing no further discussion on that subject, that's actually the last thing we have on our agenda. We no longer have our wonderful miscellaneous section where we talk about things. Is that ever coming back, Porter? Can we get the Is that,
I would take your direction on that.
yeah,
May I say something?
go ahead, Marla.
Since Monique is not here and my daughter's also putting this together, the Inclusive Winter Market is coming up, December 21st and 22nd. They've got about 100 vendors so far, so that's great. They're doing a great thing, so.
Where is that
Wanted
at?
me to give a shout out. It's going to be at the Lead.
No, okay.
Yeah.
It was a big hit
They
last
did
year.
a great job last year,
Yeah.
yeah.
My wife still has earrings that she got, and she got something else that she loves too, so.
I'll mention that I went by the 8x8
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I want to see.
gallery show over there at Center. In addition to I went there for the 8x8 opening, but I also, the other show that's going on is also really interesting.
There's 3.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's 3. I like all 3 of them. But I was really the I don't know if you know the name of it, but the one that's sort of traditional religious portraiture.
Oh, like the egg tempera.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one's really interesting from both like an artistic standpoint,
And a process.
the iconography and the process and the history, and it kind of hits on multiple notes, which I really appreciate. And then also, yeah, the one that's in the front gallery is also really lovely. So.
Yeah, there's an art talk by the artist tomorrow night at 7. But that 8x8 show, I think, was like one of our busiest art openings ever at the Art Center. And they're fantastic. They're just 8x8 inch works of art by artists all over town, even outside of town. And they were juried by Vanessa German. And so it's a really beautiful show. And it's just cool to see the variety. And Alicia's got a piece in there. No, you don't? Okay,
I
never
don't,
mind.
but I went. I enjoyed other people's art. It was lovely. I think I asked how many artworks? 200 and over 200.
Wow.
The auction.
Yeah, it's a ton and it's well displayed. It looks great.
That's a fun project, yeah, cool.
All right.
And your exhibit at the bank is still up?
Yes, that's up
Through-
until the 31st.
Okay, good to know.
Did that open between this meeting and our last meeting? I'm trying to even remember.
Yes.
Yes,
I wasn't
Yeah, it
able
was
to make
great.
the opening, but I wanted to see the show.
Yeah.
yes.
And your daughter?
And she's got stuff in it, and the lighting is great in there. It's a great
Oh, yeah.
space. It's a great space.
beautiful.
Kudos to Tim. I think
Absolutely.
that's really great that they do that. I just rarely find myself in that part of town, so it's always like, oh, I got to get over there.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I rarely go past Iowa. But when Tim inevitably watches the recording of this, he'll hear us singing his praises. And yeah, the lighting, the windows are incredible. So
It's like a gallery vinyl outside. I mean, it's real.
Yeah.
Upscale.
The sculpture outside, too, with the lighting is very impressive.
Not this week, but next week, Thursday through Saturday, West Middle School junior players, the incredibly true story of King Arthur. And if I can recommend, since there's 2 casts, the kid playing Arthur on Friday night and the late matinee Saturday, I hear good things about.
you just heard through the grapevine that
Yeah, pretty much. Also heard he's kind of a pain, but again, just rumors.
So this is verifiable, the true story.
According to the title,
That's great.
he couldn't even remember the play. And he's like, it's King Arthur something. I'm like, dude, you're King Arthur. Come on, man.
It's a great story.
great. Well, it sounds like miscellaneous is still popular. We'll officially get it on the agenda for next time. Other than that, if anybody else has anything else, if not, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right, and we are doing a vote, an actual roll call vote on adjournment.
Technically, we're supposed to, so.
Never have before, but so
It's
this is-
good practice.
So can I get a second on the motion to adjourn?
Second.
And then I'll do a roll call vote, starting with Marlo,
Approved.
and then Alicia,
Approved.
and then Kelly,
Approved?
and Matthew.
Approved.
I will also approve. It passes unanimously. Thank you all for being here and volunteering your leadership. Thank you, Porter. Thank you, Kurt.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, Kurt. Will we not?